What if the people you've lost, your parents, grandparents, friends, the ones you still miss every single day, could send you a message right now? What would they say? Over the course of more than 14,000 documented psychic readings, Edgar Cayce didn't just talk about the afterlife in abstract terms. He actually communicated with the deceased. He served as a bridge between worlds, delivering messages from those who had crossed over to the loved ones they'd left behind. And what he learned changes everything we think we know about death, grief, and our connection to those who have gone before us. The messages were consistent, urgent, and surprisingly practical. The dead, it seems, have very specific things they want us to understand. Not to frighten us, not to mystify us, but to help us live better while we're here and to prepare us for what comes next. Today, I'm going to share the 10 most important messages that the deceased communicated through Edgar Cayce. 10 things the dead desperately want you to know. Some will bring you comfort. Some may challenge what you believe. And at least one might completely change how you live the rest of your life. Thing 1. Death is not an ending. Let's start with the most fundamental message, the one that came through in reading after reading, the bedrock upon which everything else rests. The dead want you to know that death is not an ending, it's a doorway. In one of his most beautiful statements on the subject, Cayce said, "Death is only passing through God's other door. Not the final door, not a locked door, just another door in an infinite mansion with infinite rooms." Reading 136-33 puts it even more directly. For death, as commonly spoken of, is only passing through God's other door. That there is continued consciousness is evidenced, for how could we know what death is like if we had not previously experienced it? Think about what that means. You've died before, many times, in many lives, and each time you passed through that door and continued on. The consciousness reading this right now has already survived physical death multiple times. But here's what makes this more than just comforting philosophy. When Cayce gave readings for people who had lost loved ones, those loved ones would often communicate directly. In reading 1408-2, a woman who had recently died sent a message through Cayce to her family. She told them that her passing was simply because the body had grown weary and that she was now keeping a watchful, careful attention on the lives of each of the family. She wasn't gone. She had just changed addresses. The dead want you to understand this, not to minimize your grief, but to help you see that grief is about physical absence, not total loss. The connection remains. The love remains. The relationship continues, just in a different form. I want to pause here and ask, have you ever felt the presence of someone who has passed? A sudden warmth, a familiar scent with no source, a certainty that you weren't alone. According to Cayce, that's not your imagination, and I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. Thing 2. They can see what you're going through. The second message might be the one that brings the most comfort to those who are grieving. The dead want you to know that they're watching over you, and they see everything. In reading 1408-2, the deceased woman specifically communicated that she was keeping watchful, careful attention on the lives of each of the family. This wasn't a one-time occurrence. Throughout Cayce's readings, the deceased consistently demonstrated awareness of what was happening in the lives of the people they left behind. They know about your struggles. They know about your triumphs. They see the moments when you think of them, and they're moved by your love. But this awareness works both ways. And that brings us to something important. According to Cayce's readings, the deceased don't just passively observe. When they see a family member struggling, especially when that struggle involves a spiritual or emotional crisis, they actively try to help. Sometimes that help comes through dreams. which we'll discuss later. Sometimes it comes through what we might call intuition or sudden insight. And sometimes, in moments of genuine danger, it comes through direct intervention. One of the most remarkable readings involved a man who dreamed of his deceased parents coming to him with an urgent warning. His sister, they said, was contemplating suicide. Cayce confirmed that this wasn't just a dream, it was actual communication. The deceased parents could see what the living couldn't, and they were desperately trying to get a message through. The reading stated, "This dream presents to the entity, through the mother and father both dead, the thoughts being entertained by the sister because of dissatisfaction to meet properly the conditions in her life. The father and mother depend upon you to so instruct, to so direct, and to so counsel your sister." Notice that phrasing, the father and mother depend upon you. The deceased aren't omnipotent. They can see, they can communicate, but they often need the living to take action in the physical world. They depend on us to be their hands, their voice, their presence for those who need help. This creates a profound responsibility. If you've lost parents, grandparents, mentors, people who loved you and guided you, they haven't stopped watching, and they haven't stopped caring. But now, they need you to carry forward the guidance they can no longer physically provide. In another reading, a woman's deceased mother appeared in a dream to warn about an impending accident involving an automobile and a streetcar. Cayce confirmed this as genuine communication and told the woman to pass the warning along. The deceased mother could see a danger that the living couldn't, and she found a way to communicate it. This brings up an obvious question. If the dead can see us and communicate with us, why don't we hear from them more often? The answer, according to Cayce, is that we've forgotten how to listen. Thing 3. Your excessive grief is hurting them. Now we come to a message that might be difficult to hear, but it's one the dead communicated urgently and repeatedly through Cayce's readings. They want you to know that your excessive grief can actually harm them. I need to be very careful here, because grief is natural, necessary, and healthy. The dead aren't asking you not to grieve. They're asking you to eventually let them go. According to Cayce's readings, when we grieve intensely and persistently for someone who has passed, we create an energetic pull that can prevent them from moving forward in their spiritual development. Our attachment literally holds them back. Imagine being on a journey, an important one you've been preparing for your entire life. And every step you try to take, someone is pulling you backward. Not out of cruelty, but out of love. They miss you so much that they can't let go, and their inability to release you keeps you bound to a place you've already outgrown. That's what excessive grief does to the dead, according to Cayce. The readings consistently advised families to balance their mourning with prayers and thoughts of release. One reading stated that the deceased may be visited in the night by discarnate entities for many reasons. They may seek to give us assurance about their well-being in other realms of existence. They may come seeking our aid through prayer. Did you catch that? They come seeking our aid through prayer. The dead need your prayers, not prayers of desperate attachment, but prayers of love and release. Prayers that help them in their journey rather than anchoring them to yours. Edgar Cayce, who spent 4 decades studying Cayce's material and was a personal friend of his, emphasized this point repeatedly. She wrote that, "Spirits can often stay close to loved ones and not leave due to the strong emotional bonds, and this isn't always in the best interest of either party. There's a balance here that's difficult to navigate. The dead want you to remember them with love. They want you to feel the connection that still exists. But they also want you to live your life fully, to find joy again, to not waste your precious time in the physical realm consumed by loss. One of the most powerful things you can do for someone you've lost is to live well, to take the love they gave you and multiply it in the world, to honor their memory, not just with tears, but with growth service, and the full embrace of the life they can no longer physically experience. If you're currently in deep grief over someone you've lost, I want you to hear this. They don't want you to stop loving them. They don't want you to forget them. But they do want you to eventually release the grip of grief so that both of you can continue your journeys. That's not betrayal. It's the deepest form of love. Thing 4. Dreams are the primary channel. The fourth message is practical and immediate, something you can apply tonight. The dead want you to know that dreams are the primary way they communicate with you. Throughout Cayce's readings, dreams emerged as the most common and reliable method of after-death communication. Why dreams? Because in the dream state, your conscious mind, with all its doubts, fears, and filters, is temporarily set aside. The barriers that normally prevent communication become permeable. Cayce explained it this way. All subconscious minds are in contact with one another. Through the subconscious, dreams may place us in attunement with those in the physical realm or those in the spiritual realm. When you dream of a deceased loved one, especially when the dream is vivid, emotional, and feels different from ordinary dreams, there's a good chance you're receiving an actual visit, not just processing memories. How do you tell the difference? According to researchers who studied Cayce's dream readings, visitation dreams have several distinctive qualities. First, they feel more real than regular dreams. You wake up with a sense of certainty that something actually happened. Second, the deceased person often appears healthy, happy, and at peace, even if they were sick or suffering before death. Third, the dream frequently contains a message, something specific, meaningful, often something you couldn't have known otherwise. In one reading, Cayce explained that the dead sometimes come in dreams to show the living what death is like, to take away their fear and grief. They come to demonstrate that they're okay, that the transition was gentle, that there's nothing to fear. One remarkable aspect of Cayce's dream readings involved the appearance of the deceased at different ages than when they died. Someone asked Cayce why they saw their father and uncles as young men, although I knew them when they were white-haired. Cayce's answer was profound. They are growing, as it were, upon the eternal plane. For, as may be experienced in every entity, a death is a birth, and those that are growing then appear in their growing state. Think about what that implies. In the spiritual realm, the deceased aren't frozen at the moment of death. They continue to develop, to grow, to evolve. When they appear younger in dreams, it's because they're showing you their true state of spiritual vitality, free from the limitations of their worn-out physical bodies. If you want to increase your chances of receiving communication from deceased loved ones, Cayce's readings offer practical guidance. Keep a dream journal beside your bed and write down whatever you remember immediately upon waking. Before sleep, hold a sincere intention to receive communication, not demanding it, but opening yourself to it, and most importantly, work on developing your overall dream recall and dream awareness through consistent practice. The dead are trying to reach you. The question is whether you're creating the conditions to receive their messages. Thing 5. They don't always know they're dead. The fifth message is one of the most surprising and potentially disturbing things the dead want you to understand. Some of them don't know they're dead. In reading after reading, Cayce described souls who remained in a confused, earthbound state for extended periods, sometimes years, without realizing they had left their physical bodies. Reading 5756-4 states directly that many an individual has remained in that called death for what ye call years without realizing it was dead. How is this possible? According to Cayce, the transition from physical to non-physical existence can be so gradual, so seamless for some individuals that they don't recognize the change. They continue their routines, their thoughts, their attachments, completely unaware that everyone around them can no longer see or hear them. This is particularly common in cases of sudden death, accidents, heart attacks, violence, where the person had no time to prepare. It's also common among those who are intensely attached to physical pleasures and material concerns, people who defined themselves entirely by their physical existence and couldn't conceive of consciousness continuing without a body. The reading continues. The feelings, the desires for what ye call appetites are changed or not aware at all. The ability to communicate is that which usually disturbs or worries others. In other words, these confused souls might try to interact with the physical world and be distressed when no one responds. They might not understand why their family ignores them, why their home feels different, why nothing works the way it used to. This is one reason why the dead ask for our prayers. Not just for ourselves, not just for our connection to them, but for those who are stuck. Souls who haven't yet realized their situation or who need help moving forward. Cayce's reading suggests that prayers and loving thoughts directed toward the deceased can actually reach them, can help illuminate their confusion, can support their transition to higher states of awareness. This is similar to the concept of prayers for the dead found in many religious traditions, practices that may have more pragmatic basis than we typically assume. There's another implication here for how we live our current life. If some souls don't know they're dead because they were too attached to physical existence, too focused on material pleasures, too disconnected from spiritual awareness, then developing spiritual awareness now, while we're alive, helps ensure a smoother transition when our time comes. The dead want you to know this not to frighten you, but to motivate you. The work you do on your consciousness now carries over. The spiritual development you cultivate in this life doesn't disappear at death. It becomes your navigational equipment for what comes next. What you believe now shapes what you experience then. This brings us to the sixth message, which is closely related but even more far-reaching. The dead want you to know that your beliefs and consciousness in this life directly shape your experience of the afterlife. According to Cayce's readings, death doesn't automatically bring enlightenment. You don't suddenly understand everything, suddenly become spiritually advanced, suddenly transcend all your limitations just because you've left your body. What you believe, how you think, who you've become, all of this travels with you. This explains one of the most puzzling aspects of near-death experience research. Why do Christians tend to see Jesus? Why do Buddhists tend to see Buddha? Why do the spiritual landscapes described by different people vary so much? According to Cayce, it's because your beliefs create the initial lens through which you perceive the afterlife. If you expect judgment, you'll experience something that feels like judgment. If you expect unconditional love, you'll experience something that feels like unconditional love. The afterlife isn't one size fits all. It's customized to your consciousness. Now, this doesn't mean the afterlife is purely subjective, or that all beliefs are equally accurate. Cayce's readings suggest that beyond these initial belief-shaped experiences, there are objective spiritual realities that souls eventually encounter. But the early phases of the after-death experience are heavily influenced by what you bring with you. This has profound implications for how we live. If you spend your life cultivating fear, judgment, and negativity, you'll carry those qualities into the next phase of existence. If you spend your life developing love, compassion, and spiritual awareness, those become your resources in the transition. One reading described how souls who depart with unresolved emotional patterns often undergo a period of purification, but Cayce emphasized that this isn't punishment. It's loving restoration of the soul's natural harmony, occurring within a field of unconditional love and support from more advanced spiritual beings. The dead want you to understand that you're not just preparing for death, you're preparing for continued life. The consciousness you're developing right now, the thoughts you're thinking, the beliefs you're holding, the love you're cultivating. These aren't just for your remaining years in the physical realm. They're the foundation for everything that comes after. They regret what they didn't do more than what they did. The seventh message emerged repeatedly when Cayce communicated with those who had crossed over, and it carries urgent implications for how we spend our remaining time on Earth. The dead want you to know that they regret what they didn't do far more than what they did. When souls review their lives, a process that happens universally according to Cayce's readings, the greatest pain doesn't come from mistakes made, risks taken, or failures experienced. The greatest pain comes from opportunities missed, love unexpressed, and potential unfulfilled. In readings related to those who had died by their own hand, Cayce communicated that these souls didn't speak of regret for their actions so much as regret for the things that they didn't do. When they ended their lives, they also cut short the opportunities to learn from the experiences that life has to offer. Every experience in physical life, even the painful ones, even the difficult ones, is an opportunity for soul growth that cannot be replicated in other realms. The dead understand this in a way we often don't while we're still here. This is why they urge us, through whatever channels they can find, to fully embrace our time in the physical realm. Don't wait to tell someone you love them. Don't postpone the creative project, the reconciliation, the adventure, the conversation that might change everything. Don't assume you'll have more time to become who you're meant to be. The dead can see with perfect clarity how short physical life is from the perspective of eternity, and they can see how precious every single moment is. Something we so easily forget when we're immersed in daily concerns and endless distractions. They also want you to know that kindness matters more than success, that presence matters more than productivity, that love expressed matters infinitely more than love merely felt. One of Cayce's most striking readings stated, "To find that ye only lived, died, and were buried under the cherry tree in grandmother's garden does not make thee one whit a better neighbor, citizen, mother, or father. But to know that ye spoke unkindly and suffered for it, and in the present may correct it by being righteous, that is worthwhile." The dead don't care about your resume, your bank account, or your social status. They care about whether you loved well, served generously, and grew in consciousness. Everything else fades to irrelevance when viewed from the other side. If there's someone you need to forgive, do it today. If there's something you need to say it now. If there's a dream you've been postponing, start moving toward it immediately. The dead are watching, hoping you'll learn from their perspective without having to leave your body to gain it. Thing number 8. Your prayers have real power to help them. The 8th message is one of the most actionable things the dead want you to know. Your prayers have real, tangible power to help them in their journey. We touched on this earlier, but it deserves deeper exploration because it represents something concrete you can do right now to assist those you've lost. According to Cayce's readings, the dead may visit us seeking our aid through prayer. This isn't metaphorical or merely psychological. It's actual help that crosses the boundary between dimensions. How does this work? Cayce explained that prayer generates spiritual energy, a real force that can be directed and received. When you pray for someone who has passed, that energy reaches them. It can help illuminate their confusion if they're stuck. It can support their purification if they're processing difficult karma. It can strengthen them as they prepare for whatever comes next. The tradition of praying for the dead, found in Catholicism, Orthodox Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, and many other spiritual traditions, has a basis in spiritual reality, according to the Cayce readings. These practices developed because they worked. People felt the connection, sensed the response, experienced the mutual benefit. but not all prayers are equally effective. Cayce emphasized the importance of the intention and quality behind prayer. Prayers of desperate attachment, essentially begging the deceased to stay connected to you, don't help them and may actually hinder their progress. What does help are prayers of love and release, prayers that wish them well on their journey, prayers that offer support without demanding return. The readings also suggest specific approaches, prayers of thanksgiving for the time you had together, prayers asking for their continued growth and blessing, prayers releasing them to move forward while keeping the loving connection alive, and prayers asking that they be surrounded by higher spiritual beings who can guide them. One particularly powerful practice from the Cayce readings is praying not just for your own deceased loved ones, but for all souls in transition, including those who are confused, stuck, or struggling. These prayers of universal compassion generate tremendous spiritual force and can help souls you never knew in physical life. The dead want you to know that prayer isn't just comforting for you, it's genuinely helpful to them. The energy of your love and intention travels across dimensions. They feel it, and it matters. If you've been feeling guilty that you're not doing enough to honor someone you've lost, here's your answer. Pray for them. Regularly, consistently, with love and release. It reaches them, and it helps. The connection never ends. We travel together. The ninth message speaks to the deepest human fear about death, the fear of permanent separation. The dead want you to know that you are part of a soul group and you will be together again. Throughout Cayce's readings on reincarnation and the afterlife, one concept appeared consistently, the idea that souls travel together through multiple incarnations. The people you love in this life aren't random connections. They're beings you've known and loved across many lifetimes, and you will continue to know and love them across many more. This includes not just romantic partners and family members, but close friends, mentors, and even some people who appear briefly but significantly in your life. Soul recognition, that immediate sense of knowing someone you've just met, often indicates a pre-existing spiritual connection. Cayce explained that in the between-life state, as souls prepare for their next incarnation, they often choose to coordinate with other members of their soul group. We select surroundings, parents, family, location, time period, that allow us to reconnect with souls we need to work with. Sometimes we return as different relationships to each other. Your mother in this life might have been your sister in a previous one. Your best friend might have been your parent. The relationships shift, but the essential connection remains. This means the death of a loved one isn't a final goodbye. It's a temporary physical separation within an eternal relationship. You will see them again. You will be together again. The love that connects you transcends any single lifetime. According to Cayce, souls who have crossed over often participate in planning the incarnations of their still living loved ones. They may help coordinate circumstances that will support your growth. They may be waiting for you to complete certain lessons before your reunion. They remain invested in your journey even as they continue their own. And when your own physical life ends, they will be there to meet you. One of the most consistent elements in near-death experiences that remarkably parallel Cayce's readings, is the encounter with deceased loved ones during the transition. They come to greet us, to ease the transition, to welcome us home to a realm where physical separation no longer exists. The dead want you to understand that love is the most powerful force in existence, and it's what binds soul groups together across all of time and space. The love you feel for those who have passed isn't wasted on the dead. It's the living thread that connects you across dimensions and will draw you back together when the time is right. Thing number 10. This life is the opportunity. The 10th and final message may be the most important of all. The dead want you to know that physical life is a precious, irreplaceable opportunity, and they need you to not waste it. From the perspective of the afterlife, physical incarnation is revealed as something remarkable and rare. Yes, the spiritual realms offer their own forms of growth and development. Yes, consciousness continues and evolves after death. But there are certain kinds of growth, certain lessons, certain accomplishments that can only happen in a physical body on the physical plane. The density, the challenges, the limitations of physical existence, all the things we complain about, all the things we try to escape, are precisely what make Earth such a powerful school for soul development. When you struggle with something in physical form and overcome it, that victory is yours forever. When you choose love over fear while surrounded by conditions that make fear seem rational, that choice shapes your soul in ways that can't be replicated elsewhere. When you serve others while in a body that has its own needs and pains and limitations, that service carries extraordinary spiritual weight. The dead can see this clearly, and they desperately want you to see it too. In reading 5756-4, Cayce communicated one of his most powerful statements about the relationship between physical and spiritual existence. Death in the physical is birth in the spiritual. Birth in the physical is death in the spiritual. Each time you incarnate, you die to the spiritual realm in order to be born into physical limitation. And each time you physically die, you're born back into spiritual expansion. Both states offer something the other can't. And right now, you have access to the physical opportunity. The dead aren't asking you to rush toward them. They're asking you to fully embrace the life you're currently living. That means engaging with your challenges instead of running from them. That means developing your consciousness through whatever practices serve your growth. That means loving generously, serving freely, and becoming more fully who you're meant to be. Cayce once said, "You are spiritual beings having a human experience, not for punishment or by random chance, but as part of an extraordinary journey of consciousness unfolding across eternity. The human experience isn't the whole journey, but it's a vital part of it, and the dead, watching from their vantage point, can see how vital it truly is." The final truth. So let me summarize the 10 things the dead want you to know according to Edgar Cayce's remarkable readings. 1. Death is not an ending. It's a doorway to continued existence. 2. They can see what you're going through, and they're watching over you with love. 3. Your excessive grief can actually harm them. Honor them by eventually releasing them to continue their journey. 4. Dreams are the primary channel for communication. Pay attention to them. 5. Some souls don't immediately know they're dead. Your prayers can help them find clarity. 6. What you believe now shapes what you'll experience after death. Develop your consciousness while you can. 7. They regret what they didn't do more than what they did. Don't make the same mistake. 8. Your prayers have real power to help them. Use that power with love. 9. You're part of a soul group that travels together. The connection never truly ends. 10. Physical life is a precious opportunity. Don't waste it waiting for what comes next. If you've lost someone and you're struggling with that loss, I hope these messages bring you some comfort. The dead aren't gone. They've just moved into a room you can't currently see. The love remains, the connection remains, and one day you'll be together again. In the meantime, they're asking you to live well, to grow in consciousness, to love without holding back, and to become the fullest expression of who you're meant to be. That's not just their gift to you. It's your gift to them, to yourself, and to everyone whose life you touch during your precious time in physical form. as Cayce so beautifully put it. And may the blessings of the Father, through the love as shown in the Christ, guide each of you, through the vicissitudes of life, through all the shadows, through all the disappointments, through all the sorrows. Know He is near, and will hold thee by the hand. If this video brought you comfort or insight, please share it with someone who has lost a loved one and needs to hear these messages. Death doesn't have to be the terrifying unknown we've made it into. According to Edgar Cayce, it's simply the next chapter in an eternal story of love, growth, and reunion. Your loved ones are waiting, not for your death, but for your fullest life. Make them proud.